Okay, so now we are going to discuss the concept of request parameters. Now, what are request parameters? Request parameters are something that you can append to your endpoint, to your path, and you can send additional data to the backend. So let me just show you instead of just talking theories. So here we have our endpoint, which is localhost.8080 and slash API slash peoples. Now, request parameters syntax is something like this. There are key value pairs where you can send in the request URL and you can send it to the backend. So first, if you want to add a request parameter, the first request parameters you'll need to put question mark. And then you will need to put the syntax is something like this. The key equals the value, like this. So for example, if I want to send name equals Edward, you will see that this is the same endpoint and this will be the same mapping, but besides this endpoint mapping, I will also send this name parameter with the value Edward to my backend. Now, if you want to add another request parameter, you don't need to put another question mark, you need to put the ampersand symbol. So we can put age 30, like this. Now let me start the application. Okay, so I've started my application. Now if I click send, you will see I have the same endpoint, the same method is being executed here. Because request parameters doesn't mean a new endpoint, it's just something that you add to your specific endpoint. Now, because I haven't configured here Spring, this doesn't represent anything. I am just sending additional data and I'm not doing anything with it. But let's say that I want to filter my collection based on the value and which I'm giving here. How would I do that? So to add mapping for request parameters, we can add an annotation which, you guessed it, is called request params. And here I need to put the name of my parameter, and I can put name, and then I can put a string name. So now I'm going to go to get people here. Okay, not here. Here I'm going to put the string name in my argument. I'm also going to put in my implementation. And what I want to do here, I want to filter my collection based on if my person contains the specific name. So I can add here a filter. I can put person, and I can put if person get name to lowercase, so it's case is sensitive, contains name to lowercase, like this. Now I need to go to my controller. Let me just delete all this from the previous video. Okay, I need to go to my controller and put the name here. Now I will restart my application, and now you will see, based on the value which I have added here, that this parameter will be taken into consideration. But this won't be taken into consideration because I just append it to my URL, but my backend doesn't do anything. Okay, so now if I start this, you will see I have only Edward because this is my value. Now if I put E, I will have all the names which contain the letter E. Now if I put Mer from Merkel, I should have only this specific value. Now what happens if I delete this parameter and just leave age? You will see I will have an error because when I am adding a new request parameter, by default it is required. So now I cannot call my getPeoples like this because I need to explicitly tell this request parameter in my method. So by default, if I put here this attribute, you will see by default is required true. But if you don't want it to be required, you can put required false. And now it should work even without my name. But the problem is if I don't put a name, I will have a null pointer exception. Why? Because now I'm sending null, and here in my filter is doing name to lowercase, which is a null pointer exception. Now to do this, I can add like a check, if object is null, name, or else do this. So if the object is null, it will return all the persons. Otherwise, it will do the validation, not the validation, the filtering. So now it should work even without adding the parameter. But if I add the parameter, question mark, name, Edward, and now it should work. Now if you see, pay close attention here in Postman, you have this params tab. So you can manually add here and Postman will append it to your URL. For example, let me delete this. I can add here name, and you see that Postman automatically has added the question mark for me. Okay, let me just click this. Name Edward. Now if I add another one, age, you see that it has added that percent question mark. Now I can put I don't know, email, and so on and so on. So these are the parameters. Now if I want to add age, and let's say I want to filter everything based on age, I can do like this. All I have to do is go to my person controller and add a new request param. I can put the value to be age and required also to be false, integer age. Now I have to also go here, change the argument, integer age, and here I can just duplicate this, but instead of name I can put age, and here I can just check if person get age equals with age, like this. Like this, I need to go to my controller and also add age in my body. So now I can filter my peoples based on name and based on age very easily with using just request parameter. So now if I click this, you will see I have only Edward Matei, and because age is 30, now if I put 31, I should get an empty array. So these are request parameters, something you can append to your endpoints using the question mark when you add the first parameter, and then using the ampersand when you add multiple parameters. And this is a very nice and clean way where the front end can communicate with the backend and can send some additional data, and you do not use a request body, because let's say you want to send just a name, you instead of using, you know, like a request body like this, name Edward. Now you can also use this. You can just send it in a request parameter.